Okay, short and sweet, let's get into this shit. Guys, welcome to part 2 of Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. Last episode, we talked about the documentary that heavily inspired The Master, which is Let There Be Lights by John Huston. And we discussed lots of the film up until the point where Joaquin and Philip Seymour Hoffman have their first discussion. So now we're heading into a scene that I think is referred back to and talked about a lot, which is Joaquin and Phil Hoffman's first processing. It's one of the best acted scenes I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's seriously high up there. Jackson, how did you feel? You put Phil Hoffman in a room, you put Joaquin Phoenix in a room, and you give them that script.
It's one of those scenes that you just can't really take your eyes off, man. I'll be honest with you. Like I remember,
literally, don't blink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember watching it, and my roommate was like coming in and out as I was watching it, and he just stopped and like stared and just watched the scene with me for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
because he was just picking up on some of the things that they said, and it was actually unbelievable how well they managed to pull off something like that. I really liked Joaquin's performance specifically because he just like absolutely wanted to like impress Philip's character, but also did not want to let him like know too much about himself. Like he was still very private at that point in time. So him trying to like figure out how exactly to sort of give him enough information about himself and be able to accept him while also, not giving him everything he wants. Like, it was very interesting to watch how he sort of managed to play that. Yeah, I loved it.
Absolutely. It's some of the information that you get about Joaquin's character is pretty shocking in that scene as well. Particularly the Noah, you brought up that Joaquin might have issues with his dad.
Oh yeah,
and I would say definitely some issues with his auntie as well.
Yes, and his mom.
And his mom.
It's probably a good time to mention, because this scene is so freaking amazing, and this is the first scene where...
you put probably our two main characters in the same room, that's fair to say.
This might be the first step in Freddy attempting to become a civilized human being. Or at least the first significant leap in that. There's this great scene in a movie, so Paul's brought this up in terms of inspiring Joaquin's character, or how he wanted Joaquin to behave in the film, because he's very like animalistic the whole movie, which is sort of the thesis of, in a way, of the movie. And he said he saw a movie called Baraka, which is a film which I've not seen, but it's essentially a movie that's just music and footage. And there's a scene in the opening of Baraka with this monkey who's falling asleep in a natural pool or whatever, and it's just falling asleep, and it's like a 2-minute long shot. And Paul showed that to Joaquin and said, we should try to do something like that. And
wow.
And that was
be like the monkey.
Yeah, be like the monkey.
Wow.
Well, if you look at Joaquin's...
his posture.
Yeah. Everything. He's very ape-like, and he does a lot of shit that apes do. And especially in this scene when he's talking to... You can see it coming out of him, and he doesn't want to do it. It's this, like... Philip's making this effort, this super strong effort to make sure that Joaquin is present in the conversation. And it's like, how much control can I exercise over this man without him, where he can't do anything in order to get rid of... So he tells him, like, don't blink. That's one of the things he tells him. And then Joaquin gets mad at himself for, like, not blinking and not asking the questions correctly. Like, slaps himself across the face and shit. It's insane.
Yeah, slaps himself really fucking hard.
Really hard.
Well.
This is probably the best acting I've seen from Joaquin Phoenix, which is a big call, because he's done everything.
He's got an amazing career,
But holy shit, this performance is out of this world. And when Philip was prepping, I know there's a lot of sort of speculation about the idea that, this is based on L. Ron Hubbard and that's what he's doing. Philip said in interviews, like multiple interviews, that he was not in the least trying to imitate L. Ron Hubbard, and he said if people had watched L. Ron Hubbard footage, they would know that he's not trying to imitate L. Ron Hubbard. Apparently, he based a little bit of the character on Orson Welles because of just the charisma of him.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
But it was like this similar, like he said, there were very few people that had that sort of charisma that he found, or had that sort of presence of like just owning every place they walked into without being unlikable at the same time. And then Paul recommended to Philip some films from W.C. Fields, who was a comedian back in the 30s, 40s, so on and so forth, who was a sort of similar larger-than-life sort of a goofy character, I recommend the movie The Bank Dick from 1940, which was on one of Kubrick's top 10 lists back when he was asked to make a very early top 10 list of top 10 movies. Very strange comedy. If you want to know what cutting edge comedy was in the 40s, I would recommend it. It's not very funny anymore. But there's a lot of like innovative ideas in it, and you can sort of see if Philip did take something from that, where he might have got it from. It's the posture of this man, how he walks around. He's like top hatted and suited, and like it feels very very formal and very commanding. But also he's not really likable. He's just talks with a certain inflection and ability that makes you pay attention to him. Is like very arresting sort of presence. And when these two things match up in this scene, it's like it's the fucking best thing ever recorded. It's great. And yeah, we learn all about his history.
100%, yeah. He had sex with his auntie multiple times. That's worth noting.
Yeah.
Don't know what else to say on that. He I really don't. I don't have an analysis. It's just he has a complicated sexual history, and he definitely was fucking taken advantage of. I know he says that like I wanted to, and like I fucked her and fucked her again and stuff.
You mean he was taken advantage of?
Oh, sorry. I think that Freddie Quill was taken advantage of by his auntie.
Okay.
And I know that he recalls it, and he says,
Yeah.
I fucked her and fucked her again.
Yeah.
And like I wanted to and all this stuff, and she looked good, but it's an adult taking advantage of a minor, for fuck's sake. Like, yeah, he's got raped more or less, which is explains a lot about Freddie Quill's unusual behavior in relation to sex. It's a interesting event to happen to you early on.
He mentions that his father died of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, and
which big explains
Yep.
what we've just seen.
Yeah.
The attempted murder by alcohol poisoning.
Yep.
It's like, you look like my dad, therefore you gotta die.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kill you by alcohol. And
Yep.
his mum is now in a loony bin.
Yeah, psych ward. Yeah.
Yep, she went crazy.
Which might suggest a bit more of an implication to wanting to murder somebody that looks like your father. Just putting that out there.
Oh yeah, from the father's behavior.
Not all alcoholics are abusive, but sometimes it's the case.
Lots of them are.
And so I don't think the two dots are like unconnectable,
Yeah.
put it that way. So we learn that Freddy is effectively an orphan,
Yeah.
pretty much. And not just that way, that he doesn't have any support system or has had no support system. And then whatever PTSD he experienced in the war is just on top of that. So all his problems were there way before he even went to the war. He was totally fucked up, and then he was thrown into a war on top of that.
I really liked that
Yeah.
idea that's in the film. Is and I think that's partly what Joaquin might be laughing at when he says, like, you might call this nostalgia, haha, and he's so defensive, is the fact that this this therapist is trying to understand how the war has affected Freddy, and Freddy knows within himself, it's like, buddy, this goes back to way before the war.
Yeah.
Like, how long have you got? I've had PTSD since I was a fucking child.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Which is just a really sad thought.
I'll just add one note here as well from Let There Be Light, where there's another psychologist interviewing a group full of men in the film about what their deal is and how they've been psychologically affected. And some of the men in the crowd pipe up, and eventually it gets to this one guy who talks about his parents, and then the psychologist says, and I'm quoting this in context, this is out of context, but he says, how one's sense of personal safety would stem from childhood safety and would stem from the parent's safety. So if Paul wanted to work that in from somewhere, that could have been where it was from, I thought.
Yep. That's pretty cool. I heard a beautiful quote recently. I don't think this applies to how Freddy carries himself, but I think it's an interesting thought I heard, which is, you are the person that you would have felt safe with as a child based on your upbringing.
That's nice.
Yeah, which I really liked. And it was on TikTok, so I was like, there you go TikTok. Why am I crying in the club right now? But don't know what else to say about that. I think it just shapes who you are and how you treat others.
Yeah.
And
we get the most important piece of information in the whole movie.
Which, like, we've already had it, or
no, then we get it from that interaction.
Yeah.
Where we learn that he's essentially abandoned Doris.
Oh yeah, right.
That's
yeah.
the main thing that comes out of that interaction.
Yeah.
And Philip keeps asking him, why aren't you with her? And he's like, I got no reason, I'm a fool. And he's like,
Yeah.
why aren't you with the girl? That whole thing.
And it's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When he has that flashback to Doris, he's the one who leaves for a business opportunity after he begs her to stay.
Yeah, he leaves
to essentially go to the war. And the scene prior, he begs her, he says, please don't go on this trip overseas. I want you to be here with me. And then he leaves before and says, will you wait for me for 1 year? He says to her, I'll come back in a year and we'll continue this thing. Yes.
Yeah.
And then in the film, he doesn't try to reconnect with her until 6 years later.
No,
and
he abandons her.
Yeah.
He leaves. Yeah.
And she's married to a man and has 2 kids.
Yeah, well, we learned that later.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that at this point in the film.
No, he finds that out.
We just get that flashback that says that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think part of that is probably, well, not probably, I think it's really likely, is I think Freddy definitely feels like he is unlovable. For sure.
Yep.
He's got a horribly low opinion of himself. That's why he's put himself on such a downward spiral intentionally. And, I think it would have struck him, even the fact that Doris was willing to go on a trip away while they were starting something, to him would have been like, okay, well, I need to leave her before she leaves me.
Sure.
Like, that's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
People don't want to be the one to get broken up with, so they do it first. And if you've got a history of getting hurt, like you have some sort of security in being the one who does the hurting, and that obviously doesn't work out for him, and it's really fucking heartbreaking. We'll talk about it later, but that conversation he has with Doris's mum at the door, I was just like, God, make it end. Like, this is so fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that theme of Freddy leaving is brought back to at the end of the film, and we'll get back into that later. The only other thing I wanted to say about this Doris thing at the moment is that we only see Doris through memories, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Because Freddy never sees Doris again, as far as the story of the film goes, we never see her again. Every single time we see Doris, it's just a memory or a flashback or whatever. And so Doris never really, in a sense, doesn't really exist in this life, in this post-war life for Freddy. And he's trying to go back to a past life, which is the whole point of Philip's
his whole philosophy.
thing. Yeah. I think it might be worth mentioning that Doris could be, or might be, or is somewhat alluded to, just considering the last shot of the film as having something to do with the Sand Woman in the beach, and the fact that every time she comes up, she's brought up twice, and it's echoed to through that shot of the waves that's cut back to, like that shot, it happens 3 times, and the first time it's just Freddy's thing, but that's to imply that she has some omnipotence over Freddy, and he's thinking about her. And then it comes up again when she's brought up there in that scene, and then it comes up at the end when he learns about before he learns about the fact that she's gone, or that she's with somebody else, and that relates to the beach to me, or that idea of that sand woman, this like image of a woman who's not there, she's not a real, she's not with him, she's a recreation that he's made of somebody.
Yeah.
Which is who Doris essentially is. She only exists to him in his memory.
Which is interesting too, because the women that he hooks up with or shows interest in the film, they all look so much like Doris too. So it's a recreation in that sense as well.
Yeah. Maybe that's torturous for him.
It's got to be
an added thing for Paul, where he's like, we're going to torture Freddy by having all these women look
just like Doris. Yeah.
The next instance, I think, or reminder of Doris, or something that alludes to it at least, is when Freddy goes to that mansion party. And at the mansion party, Freddy decides to look around. And he goes into a room where there's like this big desk or whatever. And on the desk, there's this wooden statue of a woman. And he picks it up and tries to steal it, but it won't fit. And so he has to put it back down on the table. And if that's not an obvious enough allusion to the idea, like, I want this woman with me, but I can't have her, is this like... And then as he leaves the room, the camera pans and there's a painting on the wall of this woman who's like sitting like all proper and whatever. It looks like, and it lingers on her for half a second, like she's like judging him for having to like steal that or whatever. It's great, nice little scene, but it's very it works itself in nicely to like, remind us that of what's happening in this scene, because this scene can get a little bit lost in the debate of like, is what Lancaster Dodd is doing, is it is it coming from a genuine place or not? So it helps us not lose that, I think. Keeps the idea of Freddy and women in the film as we move in. So yeah, they were at this mansion party.
Great scene.
We get awesome scenes.
Holy fuck.
What did you think about this when you saw this?
The when the dude questions him.
Oh, I fucking love that. He got so defensive, man. His analogies of time travel, being like, if you're in a river and you go past a bend and you don't see the bend, that doesn't mean that the bend wasn't there. He gets so worked up. It's great. He's trying so hard to make what he believes seem so plausible.
Yeah.
But the dude just doesn't buy it at all. And it doesn't that dude get attacked by Rami, or is that somebody else?
By Freddy.
Freddy and Rami,
Yeah, both of them go to his apartment afterwards, and they say they have a present for him. Yeah. And then they bust into his apartment and they beat the shit out of him off camera.
Yeah, he's kind of becoming his attack dog in a way.
Yes.
It's like he's yearning for a fight.
Post that scene where they're together and Freddy opens up to Lancaster. After that scene, Freddy's loyalty to Lancaster spikes.
Yeah.
And he becomes very defensive of and it, the thing is, like, I am doubtful, highly doubtful, that Freddy understands anything about what this place is. I don't think he's read the books. I don't think he knows anything. But what he does know is that he has been helped by this guy.
Yeah.
And just on that very primal level of, like, you let me open up to you and that's made me feel better, I'm going to defend you no matter what you believe, even if it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's if this film has something to do with Scientology or has something to do with any of that sort of stuff, or religion in general, it's just this idea that, like, maybe all of the stuff that has to do with the logistics of the religion and the books and the writings and the teachings, people don't buy in because of that stuff. They buy in because it helped them. Yeah. And they're people just like everybody is, and if something makes you feel better, you're probably going to engage with it. Yeah. And so that's it. It's very primal on Freddy's part.
And I think I'll circle back to something that you said, which is a lot of people in the war, they liked having someone to tell them what to do, because in a sense it was helping them, yes, but it also gave them purpose, gave them a direction to go in. Yeah. And in the very first conversation that he has with Philip Hoffman, Phil Hoffman introduces himself as this ship's commander. Yes. Which is the military term. Yeah. Which is not by accident, because he also said, I heard you told me last night you were working on ships as a sailor. Yes. And it's like, okay, clever choice of words there. Yeah. Phil Hoffman. Like, you know the effect of this. Anyway, so he's like, it's not only that he's supporting someone who's helped him, he is protecting his purpose. If there's no Lancaster Dodd, Freddy Quill has to go back to doing whatever it is, whether it's farming or taking photos in a mall and drinking himself silly and trying to have sex with every woman with two legs that he walks past, and so we get this incredible scene. He does processing on an old lady. She says she laughs, and she laughs during, and this was the first time that I kind of clocked in the laughing thing during examinations, is she starts laughing, and you can tell that he's doing an examination in the film story in public for the first time. And I was wondering, I wonder how people are going to react to this, because it's obviously a pretty challenging idea, the fact that he's coaching this woman to relive, like, her past life or, like, memories that are impossible to recall within a regular state of mind. And she starts laughing, and I went, oh fuck, she's like laughing at him, and he's gonna get completely humiliated. And then Phil Hoffman goes, that's good, it's good to laugh through processing. So how did you feel about this? And he immediately takes control back of the situation. And I was like, that is so fucking clever. Like, talk about thinking under pressure. And it's also the same thing that he said to Freddy Quill when Freddy farted during his examination. He says, it's good to laugh through examination, we can stop. And Freddy says, no, I'm enjoying this. And then he exerts power back again, which is like reverse psychology. So I think that's just genius manipulation. But there is a skeptic in the room, and there's one guy, I forgot his name, someone more, his character has a name, and he starts questioning Lancaster Dodd on whether or not his processes really can cure leukemia, whether or not it's true that you can help people recall past lives. Lancaster Dodd bites back and he says, through this, we can help solve the atomic problem by solving problems in the past and future within ourselves. We can reconcile and not have a need for atomic war. And then the man laughs.
Yeah.
He laughs at him.
Yeah.
And Lancaster, that's when he stands up.
Yeah.
And he really gets on the offensive.
Yeah.
And he starts questioning him about, he throws the riverbend analogy at him. And I just think that's just, in a lot of great debaters in the modern era, it's obviously it's a tactic, but to pivot, to change the topic, he says, do you believe in an afterlife or something like this? And he goes, well, that's not what we were talking about. And he goes, do you believe in, and he's just like, no, let's move this over here, because I actually can't give you evidence that this stops leukemia. That's the truth.
Gotta pivot.
That's why I think Lancaster believes in what he's saying, but I think he knows that he has to present a particular way, which may be more confident than he actually is in his theories for this movement to be successful.
For sure.
Which was my comment about Alethea. I think you can't be completely sincere.
Oh yeah.
If that's the method, because there is manipulation to what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But I do think he believes in what he says.
Yeah, I don't find him to be a disingenuous person.
No.
I think he is a genuine person, but I think that it's, you can genuinely believe in something that doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Even if it helps you.
Yeah.
I think that Alethea reference has to do... I think it also has to do with the revealing of information, like in that sense that we're going to get to the
like
truth.
in the examination.
We're going to get to the truth of Freddy.
That's fair.
I think that's part of it.
I thought it was kind of ironic because it was the name of the ship that they're sailing on.
Yeah, right.
I don't think the movement is carried by
Sure.
truth.
Truth, right.
Like, well, it's being presented in a particular way.
Sure.
Also, at the end, when they relocate to the UK after
Yeah.
Lancaster's being found for taking $11,000 out of a charity account. That's not an accident either, you know. But the great thing happens. There was a amazing note. I hope this is true. I got told about this recently, where Phil Hoffman is obviously getting aggravated by this guy who will just not drop this argument and is determined to embarrass him and his philosophy in front of a room full of people that were so engrossed in it moments ago. And he has that amazing line where he says, why do you ask me questions that you already have the answer to? Pig fuck.
Best line ever.
Best fucking line ever. Apparently pig fuck is not in the script, and PTA ran Phil through so many frickin' takes of this that he said pig fuck. And
great.
Right before the one where he said pig fuck, which is in the film, PTA goes, no, there's something not right with this shot. And he walked over to Phil Hoffman and he adjusts one of his hairs and he goes, okay, now let's go for another one. Right? Like Phil hasn't just done 24 of these. Right. So Phil is obviously like, motherfucker,
so
we're going to redo this over one hair. Right. And then he says, pig fuck, and just hits that K like there's no tomorrow. And it's the best fucking delivery of a line ever. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about like Freddie Quill's carryover from the previous scene as well. He's getting judged by the woman that he looks to as he leaves. He reverts back to animal instincts and monkey behavior. He throws some food.
He throws it like he's a fucking monkey.
Yeah, he's like...
I don't know how Joaquin Phoenix is this talented, but that's not a regular throw like a human throws.
No.
Like, this man watched monkeys throw shit and probably practiced in his bedroom like 1,000 times. Like, how do I throw this to look like an ape? And it's on point. It's so accurate. It's insane. And then you get the following shot of Amy Adams looking so angry at Phil because she's so mad that
he like lost his composure.
Yeah, and also that he likes Freddy. Like Amy Adams is not a fan of this Freddy guy because she's noticing that the more time that Phil spends with Freddy, the more of Phil's animal instincts are gonna start coming to the surface. Which is exactly what she doesn't want. She needs this super composed guy all the time who's like in control of everything. But there's this idea in the film that, like, at least in my view, that Lancaster mentions in the film that like the only way to like be in the inherent state of human perfection or whatever is to like abide by a master or to live under a master or something like that. And his master is Peggy. She's the master of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's not Lancaster. Well, he might be to some people, but really she's running shit. She is, in every single way, sort of dominant over who he is. There's that scene even that alludes to the idea that Lancaster is more like Freddy than Lancaster or anybody would like to admit, where she's like sitting with Freddy on the boat early on, and she's like, yeah, I'm his wife or whatever. He has a few ex-wives.
Yeah, I love this scene.
Like multiple ex-wives, and it's like, okay, that might suggest some animalistic behavior, shall we say?
Maybe some unfaithfulness.
Sure. And maybe a good time to talk about the best framed shot in the film that's absolutely genius.
In the bathroom mirror.
Yeah, as Amy Adams is masturbating Phil into a sink.
Yep.
While he's looking at himself in a mirror, which is like the most...
Yeah, and it's perfect from
shot.
Like, if you talk about like keeping the shot like, let's say, decent as well, it also works perfectly for that reason.
It's super decent. It's kind of funny. It's really awkward. It's uncomfortable. It takes half a second to understand what's going on the first time you see it. Did you know that? It did take a second for you to click in that that's what was happening?
Yeah, about a second.
Yeah. And then
I was the same. I didn't
like...
realize what she was doing until she was really getting some heavy strokes in there. I don't know how else to say it.
No.
It's when you see her arm doing a lot of movement.
Yeah. And then and she says things to him while he's doing it, like, you need to get rid of Freddy or stop drinking or doing all this sort of stuff.
I don't care if you do things. I just don't want to know about them, and I don't want anybody I know to know about them. That's what she says. Yeah.
Crazy. Absolutely.
And she says, no more messing around with this boy's hoochie. And he's about to come and he goes, no more hoochie, no more hoochie. It's really hilarious, man, Phil's performance, dude, when he finishes, he like the mic almost peaks.
Yeah, it's
because he goes, oh, and like screams, you know.
It's one of the. It might be one of the best scenes. Paul
it is
recorded. It's such a strange scene. And I like that it's paralleled with Freddy on the beach in the early shot. It's like a match almost for Freddy masturbating into the ocean. It's the same shot, except he's just further away. But it's this idea
and he's smaller in frame.
And he's smaller in frame, but he's back to camera, same deal. But it's just this idea of like somebody is in control of, to some extent, of their sexual practices, and the other person maybe is not. Has
someone else in control of their sexual... Yeah,
exactly.
Wow. That's a fucking great parallel.
She sort of controls when he's able to engage sexually, you might say. But Freddy has no such master over that. Which is great.
I'll say this as well on Amy Adams. She's the only person in the film that conducts processing of Joaquin that isn't Lancaster Dodd. And when it's other people participating... Lancaster's still running the experiment, like Clark. With the whole, like, you know, he has to say whatever he can say and you're not allowed to get annoyed. The only other person who runs it is Amy, which, she is the master.
It's very difficult for me to find, like, interviews with Amy Adams where she's, like, talking about this character for whatever reason. She mentioned two things. She mentioned that she likes that Peggy was ever present. Like, you'll notice that in a lot of frames she's in the foreground soft focus, for example, as Philip's giving that speech about you're a pig fuck and so on and so forth, but she's always hidden in the she's there. She's always like omnipotent over everything. And the other thing that she said in one interview was that I'm paraphrasing, but she said something like, sometimes it's difficult to tell if what's more important to her is Lancaster or the movement itself. And the line is blurred sometimes which one seems to be more important. But regardless, you know, if he's the figurehead for it. The line's sufficiently blurred to the point where, I mean, I don't really know what she wants more. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyhow, it's great. She's a great character. And this is some of the most, like, aggressive and this is such a respectable performance. Like, holy shit, she's such a great actress. This is an amazing performance from her. Yeah.
She's, man, everyone in this fucking movie goes all out. There's just on her being ever present in the final conversation where Joaquin and Phil Hoffman talk, where Joaquin walks into the office and he starts talking with Phil, and then they cut to Amy. I did not even know she was in the room. And then they never cut back to her, but she's still sitting just off camera,
Yeah.
and they're having this incredibly personal discussion, and then obviously she leaves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just did not think she was in the room, and I was like, I can't believe that she's here for this, and she hasn't excused herself yet, but then she does, obviously.
Yeah.
And she's great. I love the on Amy Adams. Just my favorite. Well, probably the most impressive scene with her, where she gets to do a lot, is the masturbating scene.
Yeah.
But my favorite scene with her is when she is processing Joaquin, and this was not in the script. Apparently, PTA had this idea.
Yeah.
Is she says like, what color are my eyes? Green. Turn them blue.
Yeah.
What color are my eyes? Blue. Turn them black. Good job, Freddie. And it's just 2 close-ups. The VFX to turn her eyes black is perfect.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's unfucking believable.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a fade. You can see, like, obviously the eyes have like the little lines that go around in a circle. It happens like very subtly in like little bands, and then it fades. It's so beautiful
it's
to look
gorgeous.
at.
It's aged very well. I know it's 2012 and we had good effects in 2012, but like, it looks great still.
It's like perfect.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, when you see her with the black eyes, you don't even question. It's like, that woman has black eyes.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the color of her eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, apparently he just put Amy in a room and was like, hey, sit down and say a bunch of lines.
Say this.
Yeah,
say
that was
this.
that.
Yeah.
Nothing in
And
the
then that was
script.
it.
He just had to do it in the camera.
That's
And,
impressive.
It's pretty cool.
When they were shooting those scenes at Laura Dern's house, her character's house, apparently the crew and a bunch of the actors, what they did is they rented out a lot of the surrounding houses. So when they had to do shooting, the shooting schedule got very fluid around that period, which is really good for PTA hitting his stride with what you're saying, where he's starts to rigidly plan films less and less, because he got to that day that he called up Amy, she just had to walk over from 2 houses down.
Right.
Apparently it's like, can you come in the afternoon, we have this scene for you. And she's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll eat lunch and then I'll walk over and then we'll do this scene, and it'll be one of the best scenes I'm probably ever been a part of, which is saying something, because Amy Adams has had a hell of a career. Yeah, how beautiful. One of the only people who I've heard doing stuff like that is Wes Anderson. Always tries to put his actors and crew in like a similar vicinity when they're making films, so that they have like a village community and they can really get like comfortable with each other.
Epic.
Just perfect for the actors. That's the number one goal, is to have your actors comfortable on a set.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Alrighty, so we've got Laura Dern enters.
Yeah, this is good. This connects to the other, the pig fuck blow up.
Yes.
This is
Oh,
the other
yeah.
one.
Yeah, cool.
The other significant blow up, which, Jackson, tell us your thoughts on the scene.
Bro, I can't remember this scene. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, okay.
Which
Oh,
scene are we
okay,
talking
fair enough.
about?
It was just after Lancaster's launched book 2.
Yeah.
He does his public address, and
Quickly, is a book that exists to explain the previous book.
I love that. Yeah, that's hilarious.
That's why it's there.
And he goes out into the
she-
freaking desert to dig it up, and it's literally just the same book.
Yeah, it's because the last one was we didn't understand it, so we needed another one, which is so funny and so telling. But anyhow,
Is she the editor? Laura Dern? Which one's
No.
Laura Dern?
Laura Dern's the woman
she-
who comes over and says to Phil, "Listen,
I noticed.
I'm up to page 13,
Yeah.
and I noticed that you changed the word remember.
Oh, yeah,
to
that's what I-
imagine."
Yeah,
I
I do remember
recall to imagine. And he said, doesn't this change the framework of your program from recalling past lives
yes.
to I'm not sure what?
Yeah.
And he says, well, imagine allows for a more creative recall,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
like, I'm sorry, Noah, but like, you want to talk about like lack of truth.
Oh, he's
how
absolutely
he
making
says
up.
that, he's like,
Oh,
I
he's-
don't give a fuck, this is
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah. It's
And-
total bullshit.
And then
It's
she asks again, she's like, but that doesn't that take away from
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's right.
Yeah.
And he goes, what do you want?
Yeah, she gets half a word in. She's
Yeah.
like, and he's like, yeah, what? He
Yeah.
yells at her. He just snaps.
And she just starts crying.
Oh, yeah.
Instantly.
Oh, it's great.
She's brilliant.
It's wild.
Yeah.
The acting of that's so beautiful. I love that there's a scene that exists between Laura Dern and Phil Hoffman in this movie. That's just
and it's
them
like 2
alone.
minutes long.
And it's just, oh
yeah.
my god.
He's had it. He's like, I don't believe in this fucking book too.
No, he doesn't give a shit.
And immediately after, he's like, I love it. It's like there's a pattern with this film, which is like, if people have moments of shame, it's followed by moments of like animalistic impulse.
Yeah.
It's like he's ashamed with Laura Dern. He's like, I've got a game. Let's take the motorbikes out and let's just fucking ride as fast as we fucking can towards a point. Are you guys ready? I'm gonna go first.
Yeah.
Bam.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does it, and he goes, and he's like, woo, this is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how that's perfectly in contrast. He goes, Freddy, your turn.
Yeah.
And Freddy goes and accelerates to full speed.
Yeah.
And he's not cheering or anything. And
And Phil's face.
Phil, he goes, he's going really fast, is what he says. And he goes to yell something out, and then he stops himself, which I love that little moment, because it's like, okay, do I want to stop him from doing this exercise? But I also don't want him to, like, I guess, outdo me in a sense, or like leave and take the motorcycle.
Yeah, I think that's a scary scene for Phil, because he's doing that, I think, to some extent. The reason that it's like, people, I should say the other thing first. Okay, before this scene, there's a scene in the mansion where Phil has Freddy
walk from wall to wall,
back and forth between a window and the wall of the mansion.
Yeah.
And he just has him walk, and it's like, I guess the same principle as the like don't blink thing.
Yeah.
It's like to disconnect whatever your mind is doing from your physical presence.
And
what
same
you're doing.
principle as the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's telling. It's the same thing. It's like the wall is the structure and cause as a whole, and then there's a window, and the window is being able to leave and freedom and overtly sexual freedom, because he starts
licking it.
he starts like doing some shit to the window.
And I love when he does that. He says, "This is a mannequin."
Yeah.
So not even a woman.
Yeah.
And then he starts like acting like he's feeling the breasts like licking the window, and brings it back to that the mermaid on the beach.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy. It's not even a artifice of a woman.
No.
It's a imagined artifice of a woman.
Well, it's because it's a symbol of freedom. It's a window.
Yeah.
Like it's that's what it is.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, and then I feel like that pick a point scene is a Phil drilling into his head, like, once you go towards freedom, you come back. Once you go, you come back. Once you go, you come back. And it's like this like psychological dog lead. When he takes him out to that desert, I think he's expecting Joaquin to repeat the physical behavior of like, you go out and then you come back, you know what I mean? But he fucking does not.
Yeah.
He just goes.
He just leaves.
And I think the reason that he goes, whether Phil realizes it or not, was taught to him by Phil, because Phil keeps teaching people that they can connect with their past lives and to pursue a connection with their past lives and to understand them fully and to do that sort of thing. But he sort of does it from within the comfort of his own mind. But the thing about Freddy is that Freddy's not a mind person, he's a body person. He's a impulse-driven person. And so he's going to go find out about his past life, but he's going to do it practically. And so he goes to Doris.
Yeah.
Because he's learnt that he has now, I think, he's been socialized enough, I feel, or at least he feels that he has been socialized enough to the point where he could actually go see her and have some sort of confidence about it, have some sort of sophistication about it. So he goes to see her, and it scares the shit out of Phil, I think, that he kept driving that fucking bike. But he shows up.
That look on Phil's face is indescribable, and then he yells, "Freddy!"
Yeah.
But Freddy is either he ignores him, or he's too far away and he can't hear him.
Yeah.
Because he's a speck on the horizon at that point.
Yeah.
And when he goes to Doris's old house where Doris's mum lives, he says, "Can I speak to Doris?" She's not here anymore. She has a husband. How long ago was he married? Was she really sad when I left? And he just keeps acting like he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And he says this funny remark where he goes, "She's married to someone Day, so her name is Doris Day now." And she goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Like the movie star?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Great."
Yeah.
And then in the next scene, I don't know if this is a connection, he goes to the movies.
Yeah.
And he
I think
watches
that's definitely
definitely a connection.
Definitely.
Yeah. And he watches Casper.
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
That's it.
Which, do you know about this, or should I say this?
No, go for it. I don't know.
There's an interview with Paul where he mentioned that once.
I know why he picked the scene from Casper, but I don't know.
It's obvious.
Casper.
The scene connection
is like, you go get it because I'm the captain, and that captain never leaves his ship, is what Casper says, and then the dude collects things for the captain. Yeah. Anyway, but sorry, you.
No, you're right. Even the straight dialogue's repeated when Phil is on the phone to him in the theater, and he's like, "Yeah, we're connected." Like, it's literally the same dialogue that's in Casper 2 seconds ago. Paul has talked about Casper, and he was like, he has no basis in research for this. He said, but the thing about Casper is that it came out about the same time as World War II came out, and he was like, the idea for Casper, he feels, could only have come out of so much heartache and sadness that it was time for the idea of a happy ghost could only have come out of that, like a friendly ghost, because we always have ghosts as scary people, and now everybody's dead, and we want to talk to our dead relatives who we can't talk to anymore, and so we want a friendly one, and that's where Casper's come from.
Fuck.
So that's why that's there.
Jesus.
Which is great, you know. Casper's quite a good cartoon, really. Some good old episodes of that I would recommend. And then...
And he has in the cinema, he has a dream that Lancaster calls him, and Lancaster says, "Come to me, I think I remember where we met in a past life, and if you come to me, I'll tell you." And so he goes to visit
Lancaster.
Goes, who's now in the UK, because maybe his reputation is not so good in the US. I gotta be honest. So he goes to the UK to visit Lancaster, who now is running a school in a big hall with lots of floors. He goes to into the office with Lancaster, and they have a discussion. I'm trying to remember how it begins. I remember how it ends. I don't remember how it begins either. I think I remember Amy Adams leaves at one point, and Joaquin makes a joke, and he says, "Well, she's really softened up. Ha ha ha." Yeah. Like this is like, I don't know. I just think it's a funny joke.
I think the important thing about the conversation
it's the request that Phil makes. Yeah.
And also I think the underlying intent behind Freddy going there, because I mean, after having watched this movie a shitload, and this might just be like ridiculous talk, but I think Freddy feels when he goes there that he has a bone to pick, kind of, because there was this like promise throughout the film almost from Phil that like your past lives is something that's like worth connecting to, and you can time travel back, and you can do this and you can do that, and it's not. I think Freddy maybe feels lied to when he shows up,
because he tried to, and then she's moved on to her next life.
So he feels a little bit like, you know, this cause that he fought for, that he liked this guy so much, all this sort of stuff, even though, you know, this man had nothing to do with Doris's ability. I do think that this idea of like holding on to essentially false hope has, you know, it hurt Freddy when he showed up and she was somewhere else. It's like teaching somebody to aspire to reach for the stars and reach for your dreams when you should just teach people how to swim instead. And like that's the, you know what I mean?
100%.
So it's that sort of a thing. So I think he does show up a little bit being disconnected a little bit from Lancaster, even though he loves him so much. There's just this feeling, I think, when he shows up there that like, if this doesn't end well, it might not. And this is not the first time I've left somebody behind, and it won't be the last. So I've done this before. He says
he says that insane thing to Freddy where he says, "If you leave, I never want to see you again. Or you could stay." And then Freddy makes a beautiful comment, which I love, which is so nice. He says, "Maybe in the next life." And then Lancaster says, "In the next life, we would be sworn enemies. And I will show no mercy to you." And then he starts singing a slow boat to China. And Freddy starts crying. Because he thinks, well, this is definitely it. This is the last time I'm seeing this guy. In this life or the next. And it's a really fucking awful move from a Lancaster. It's just a despicable fucking thing to say. I just, like, Freddy, having one, like the headspace to be able to say such like a poetic, beautiful thing that's so sincere to Lancaster is very rare for Freddie, and for him to get like talked to so brutally by Lancaster in response.
It's almost like Lancaster didn't have another move to play though.
Yeah.
It's like when he goes there, like when Freddie goes there and he's like, and his response, that beautiful response that you just said of like, maybe in another life.
Yeah.
The animosity behind that line to me is like, I'm leaving you because I can't be with Doris.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I see the logic of that transpiring. Like, you promised me this, sort of, in a way.
Yeah.
And it's not there.
Well, yeah. Amy Adams kind of literally promised it to him. She has that scene where she wakes him up and she says, I want you to think of something that you want in the future. Now, you can get it. I promise you will get it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to stop drinking, otherwise we're going to kick you out of the cause.
Right.
And I would be willing to bet my left fucking nut that what he was thinking about was Doris.
Yeah. I think it's pretty easy to promise somebody a connection with a dead person, because it can't be argued either way. It's like, did you connect with them? Yes, I feel like I did, right? Good.
Yeah.
There's no definitive proof of that.
Yeah.
Did you connect with this woman that you loved who's still alive? No, she's married with kids.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm done with you, sort of a thing. It's super, super sad.
Yeah.
That scene's just like so captivating when he sings that song. It's just like, holy shit. Like, I can't even look away. Yeah, it's amazing.
The fact that he chooses to sing as well, I think is really important. At least how I read it is Lancaster's always singing when he's, I guess, got his guard up and he's impressing a group of people and he's presenting. And I think he reverts back to that when he has no cards left to play and all he can do is be that personality. But singing the song, you can see on his face, is also fucking breaking him.
Yeah.
Because his voice gets a little shaky and...
In that last scene where that happens, for whatever reason, I was thinking about, in a way, Lancaster belongs to Peggy. Like, she's sort of in control of his life in some sense. And because he doesn't have that dominance over his own life, or he has this fake presence of dominance because behind closed doors he's the submissive one.
Yeah.
He has to have that dominance and that control over something else when he's out there, presenting himself as who he is. And I think he's offering to Freddie this sort of relationship that's sort of like master and animal and pet, sort of a little bit. But it's also this thing where I feel like he's offering him a relationship where they sort of end up, where they sort of be simpatico, and they can only exist with each other or belong to each other in a way. And the thing about Freddie is that after that scene, he has no master, and he ends up where he begins in that he belongs to himself with like no hope of belonging to anybody else. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, like with Doris, there's like a you're mine and I'm yours and we belong to each other type sentiment there. And in a sense, you could be each other's masters in a balanced relationship.
Yeah,
right?
in a healthy one.
Yeah. But in order to do that, you have to sacrifice freedom on your own part, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, in order to have a master and to be master of somebody else, you have to sacrifice freedom of yourself and being your own master, if that makes sense.
No, 100%.
And the film ends where it begins, and somebody has a master, which is Phil, and somebody doesn't have a master, which is Freddie.
Yeah. And Phil has that, it's reflected in that beautiful quote that he says to Freddie, which he says, if you can find a way to live life without a master, any master, please do let me know, for you would be the first man in human history to ever do so.
Yeah, right.
Which is very reflective as well of Phil's belief that he really cannot live without a master.
Yeah.
And I think he is, throughout the whole film, his interest in Freddie, which I think we've already stated, is not only the fact that he brings out the animalistic instincts in him, but he wants to know, how do you live without a master?
Sure.
Because he does for the most part, at least more than Lancaster.
Well, it could be argued that the idea of Doris and the hope of that is his master at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Could be argued that, but like that's an abstract idea of a master.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like on the spectrum of like how obedient are you to your master, Freddie's probably on the minor and he's on the major. And then we get to the next scene. Freddie's in a bar. He asks...
Before you do that,
yes, okay, cool.
and please finish it that way.
Yeah, all good,
That's
all good.
I want to read a quote from Philip, which is like paraphrasing, but I think it's just from Khan or from some press conference. But he said this, and I think it's really good because sometimes you see analysis of people's stuff and you go, "Oh, that's better than the actors or the directors have offered." But this was great. So Philip, this is paraphrasing, but he said, "They were born of the same thing," referring to Philip and Freddie. "They're both wild beasts. One of them has just tamed it, and he's trying to teach other people how to do that. But that's where the doubt, the prophet thing comes in. Ultimately, he wants to be wild like Freddie is. There's this real attraction there over those two things. Wanting to tame it and wanting to be wild. And I think that's basically what life is."
That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. He just sort of said
You could not put that better.
But no, it's great. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, they are one and the same.
Yeah.
It's just that one of them has a dominant wife, and one of them who won't let him do anything.
And one of them kind of wishes that he did have whether a wife or a dominant wife.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or at least somebody or a cause,
Yeah.
a master in an abstract sense, or a master in an actual human being to be the master of. That sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But they are the same thing. It's just that one's under control and one's a fucking monkey.
One drinks petrol.
Yeah.
For liquor. Yeah.
So that's really
and
good.
that's definitely the central theme of the film.
Yeah.
In mind, but without a doubt, everything pivots off that.
Sure.
And then we move to Freddie's in a bar.
Yep.
He's back to the same kind of behavior he was when he was working as a photographer, trying to pick up girls.
He's socialized himself well enough to the point where he can pick up women.
Which is...
So there is some growth
Yay,
in his
Freddie.
character.
Yep, for sure. He's not literally trying to have sex with her in a dressing room or in a stock room,
It went much better
He's
this
gone
time.
to a bar, he's drunk liquor that isn't made out of dishwashing liquid or paint thinner
That's
or whatever
personal growth.
Yep.
Yep.
Definitely. So this film does go somewhere, all those
It does,
motherfuckers.
yeah.
He goes from drinking paint thinner to fucking actual alcohol in a bar.
Yeah.
And he takes the girl home, and he while she's writing him cowgirl, and he's you know what? It's an unnecessary detail. I'm gonna throw it in there anyway. I just think it's a great shot. I think it's important that she is above him.
Yeah, she's on top of him.
That's what I'll say. That's all I'll say. I think if he doesn't work as well. He's examining her. Processing her.
He's trying to.
The same way that Lancaster did. He says, "Say your name. Say your name. Say your name.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall who you were in a past life, or do you believe that you had a past life?" And she says, "Yeah, I hope I did." And she's not really taking it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And still recording. Okay, cool. And he says, "You're the bravest girl I ever met," which is exactly what Lancaster said to him.
Yeah.
And then they start laughing together.
Yeah.
And the processing ends.
Yeah.
And then we have the shot of him with the mermaid, and then the film ends.
Yeah.
And I just want to talk really quickly about the fact that I think it's really important that in that fake joke processing, when she laughs and he laughs, the processing ends. And I think he literally says something like, "It's fallen out, stick it back in," And so obviously they've had sex afterwards, and they're not having that bloody conversation anymore.
No.
But when Lancaster's first processing Joaquin, Joaquin laughs, but then Lancaster puts it back immediately into the processing. He says it's good to laugh during processing is his ideas. He says, "You've not escaped this, we're not done here." And the fact that he can laugh at it and be in control of it and not have someone else running the processing and find humor in the fact that she's finding that question funny shows that he's free from Lancaster.
Yeah. Her name, the woman who he said.
Is Win.
It's Win.
Yeah.
I don't know what her last name is. But
Win Manchester.
Manchester.
Win Manchester,
There you go.
because he says it, and I only know that because she said it 5 times.
Yes, there you go. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah,
Win.
It's like
he had a bit of a.
He's
win.
got a little W. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
And I think laughter pops up a few times throughout the film. Now, I'm gonna name the times that it pops up.
Yeah.
I couldn't give you a great reason for all this, but maybe our listeners can, or maybe you can, Jackson.
Let's do it.
So it first pops up in their initial processing. Phil Hoffman uses it as a way to reassert his dominance over the conversation. It pops up when he's in the room and he's processing the old lady who believes she was a man in a past life, and she starts laughing and he does the same thing. When the man who accuses him of running like a cult, he says, isn't the basis of a movement based around one man's attempt the essence of a cult? And he starts laughing. Phil Hoffman gets enraged by this. Another time is at the Phoenix press conference. Phil Hoffman says that he's done some research and he's made discoveries, and he's found that the solution to an idea that he's working through is laughter, and that he'll come back to that. And then at the end, Joaquin and Wynn laugh together during their processing. I couldn't tell you the connection. I just noticed that it was a thing that not only do people laugh a lot when they're trying to escape situations and things in the film, it's also openly referred to on like 5 or 6 different occasions. And I couldn't tell you what the through line is there, but I just thought it was interesting.
Cool.
That's my honest analysis of that. Yeah.
I think it has something to do with, at least, I mean, I have not thought about this.
Yeah.
But like, laughter is one of those instinct things. You can force a laugh, you can, but it's involuntary.
Yeah.
Like if somebody says something that's funny, sometimes you just laugh, and you don't have any say over whether you're going to laugh or not. So it's an instinct-based thing. Yeah. And Phil spends a lot of the movie trying to control instincts and figure out instincts. But he learns the same thing that everybody learns, which is that you suppress an instinct that comes back with a vengeance. It's the same sort of like psychology 101, right? So like he's doing all this work to like work out all this sort of stuff. But you can work it out. That's totally fine. You can work out why people laugh, why people like this way and that way. But that doesn't give you the ability to control it. Yeah. It just is what it is.
Absolutely.
You have to experience it. You can't not laugh at something fun. If something's really that funny and you're not supposed to be laughing, you're still gonna fucking laugh.
You have to laugh. And even the fact that you're not meant to laugh always makes things funnier.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when you're in trouble or it's a taboo joke or something. Well, I guess with that in mind, it's just strengthens the point that Joaquin laughing with the woman that he's having sex with at the end, laughing at the processing, is just furthermore to the fact that he's giving in to his impulse, his emotions, and he's free. Yeah.
I want to read one more thing that Paul wrote, because I think it connects, or Paul is quoted as saying, sorry, and this is me paraphrasing as well, it's not one for one, but he said, Freddie is somebody who learned to survive alone, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't desire to be around people or to be a part of something. But the second he feels that there's too much goodwill in the room is probably the moment he's going to split. That much love and attention is probably worth bailing on for somebody like him. It doesn't make any sense, but it does. And that links to the end, I think. Like he meets this girl, maybe that's going to go well or something. No, he sort of ends up back at the back with the sand woman, which whether it's real or not.
Yeah, I was thinking whether that's a flashback or not.
Yeah, whether it is or it isn't.
Yeah,
I think that's...
the framing was exactly the same, but I did notice that his hair was a bit more grey.
Yeah.
So
I still think
guess
that
it's
that's
open.
It could be. I think that that's still a little bit to sort of say that he's either carrying a torch for Doris or he's carrying a torch for love or like some actual relationship. Like at the end of the day, he still wants it, even though he can't maintain one or isn't capable of not running when he feels like it's too good, which connects to what we said in the first half of this, which is just like he can't be loved or let himself be loved because he's too criticized by himself and everybody else in the whole thing. That connects to it. And that shot of that sitting with that woman, not only because it's one of the first things in the film, but because it's a representative of Doris, is this idea that like he can't go back. He can't go back to his previous lives. He can't go back to live in his memories. He can't. He has to. Life moves, and he's got to move with it, or he can try and live back there. And that's like a similar sentiment in Magnolia. Yeah. Can't go back. Yeah. You have to take your regret and live with it and try and be better on the other side of it. So whether he grows or not is left open, but I don't know, life's open.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, there's definitely progression in this film. Whether it's progression for him or not, I don't know, but he's going to have to move or not move. So, yeah.
Absolutely, that's it. It's not going to stop until you wise up. That's it. Jackson, any final thoughts on The Master? What a fucking massive episode this has been.
I have a lot of context to watch it again with.
Yeah.
It's going to give me a whole different perspective, I think. So I'm very excited. I feel like I just watched a 10-part YMS fucking review.
That's valid. That's valid.
No, I learned a lot. It was really good. Yeah, definitely a good movie. I feel like it might even go up in my rankings after a second watch, not gonna lie.
Oh, that's
so we'll
cool.
see how that goes.
Beautiful. I think it's it might be my favorite, but we'll see before I rewatch Phantom Thread. It's up there.
I am very excited for Phantom Thread.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay, shall we finally wrap this puppy up?
Let's do it. Fuck, we've been here forever.
Yeah.
The sun's going down.
The
You guys
sun-
can't
The
Yeah,
sun
the
has
sun's
literally
gone.
gone down, yeah. Thank you very much for listening. This has been The Master, part 1 and 2. It's definitely a 2-parter, I reckon, this one, no, for sure.
Nah, 1 3-hour ep.
Let's do it.
Review longer than the movie.
Yeah. Oh, man. Thank you so much for listening. Next up, we have Inherent Vice,
Yep.
which I'm looking forward to. It's going to be a hoot.
Fuck, I thought Phantom Thread was next.
Yeah,
I was so
no.
hyped.
No, there's a
We've
few
got
more to play.
we've got Inherent Vice, Phantom Thread, and then Licorice Pizza.
Okay, I know nothing about Inherent Vice. I might keep it that way and just
I
watch it.
don't either. Actually, I have not a clue.
Damn, alright, well, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, this will be you and me's first viewing for sure.
Hell yeah.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much, and thank you for listening. Tune in next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.